When you chose to come to Beşiktaş from Leicester City, what were the factors impacting your decision to come to Beşiktaş, and how did it evolve?
Very simply, Bobby Robson was always a friend of mine, and at that time Bobby was the manager of England, and they were training in camp at a place called Lilleshall, which is not very far from here. And he telephoned me one day and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, nothing. I've just finished at Leicester City and I think I want a break. I want a little break, because I was thinking maybe to work next time, maybe I would like to work abroad." I wasn't sure, but I had this feeling of maybe I'd like to try working abroad. So he said, "Come over and watch the training and we'll have a talk." So I went to the camp and had a chat with Bobby after training. And Bobby explained to me that Don Howe, that was Bobby's assistant at that time with England, had been helping at Beşiktaş, and that was in between trainers, I think, and Don was helping. And he said, "Don is coming back tomorrow. I think they've offered him the job, but he doesn't want the job. He wants to stay with England. Would you want to come over and talk to Don?" So I knew Don, of course. So I went back and spoke to Don, and Don said, I can see him now telling me, enthusiastic, the Başkan, well, we call them then the president. The president is a good guy. The city is football crazy. The people are fantastic. They've got a nice stadium. The training facilities are not so good, but you know, everything's good. So, you know, I came home that night and thought about it, and then very quickly really decided, okay, maybe I'd like to go and talk to the committee. The following day I had a telephone call. The following afternoon I'm in Istanbul, and that evening I've signed a contract.
So Don has changed the history of Turkish football.
Yeah, so you know, you look in your life, you look back in your life and think there's sometimes there are important times in your life that you would never anticipate. That was just a meeting with Don in 5 minutes, and it changed my life, my whole life, in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Perfect. Before you came to Turkey, had you guessed or seen the potential of such great achievements with Beşiktaş?
No, I knew nothing at all about Turkish football. You know, in those days, every year now for my tatil holiday, I go to Turkey.
Yeah.
But in those days, nobody went to Turkey from England on holiday. You know, Turkey was like still the unknown, and so with regards to Turkish football, I didn't know anything. Okay. So other than what Don had told me about the club and the Başkan, that's all I knew. You know.
Yeah. How could you describe Süleyman Seba as a club chairman and as a person?
Well, he was a special man. There's no question about that. And interesting, when I've told you this story, Don Howe, his interpretation of the Başkan, you know, he said he's a top man, and he was responsible for me being able to do the job I did eventually, because his knowledge of football, he played for Beşiktaş, he understood footballers' problems, he understood coaches, trainers' problems, and obviously he knew all about committee and Başkan problems. So he knew the mechanics, he understood people and how people worked and the challenges that people had, and he had those principles, and those principles appealed to me because that's how I worked. I believed in having discipline and organisation and trying to play the correct way and trying to do the right things. So his whole personality kind of painted the picture really of what I was trying to do as a trainer, and he was just a special man. And I think at that time and always he was respected not only by all Beşiktaş fans, but all the Başkans from Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray, all football. They all respected Süleyman, and because he was the sort of man who, if anybody had a problem, you could go and talk to, and he'd be sympathetic to that, and he would offer good advice. He was a, how do I say, for me, he was a father figure for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You won 3 championships with Beşiktaş. Which one do you consider or recall as the hardest?
Well, they were all hard to do. I think, looking back, I think maybe the first one, from my perspective, was most important, because I think I've been there 2 years, and first year nothing, second year we win the cup. So the third year, people are starting to ask questions and this and that, and what has the trainer done? And so winning it for the first time, from my view, was important. But it was also important that also for the players at that time, because that group of players, from day one, me working with them, were 100%. I never had any problems with any players at all, and they all worked hard. I had a different mentality to what they were used to. I was a stranger, they were local boys, and it takes time for you to get the confidence and working and get to know the characteristics of your players. And looking back, I think that was a special one. It was an important one. Having said that, when you win 3, the one, of course, we win, we don't lose a game. That is a fantastic achievement for everybody concerned. And I think it's still there, that challenge. Yeah, still exactly. A challenge for future Beşiktaş teams. So, of course, you get tremendous pride in that particular season. And the other thing at that time, of course, Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray, Trabzon all had very strong teams. They were high quality teams. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at the whole picture really. If the 3 seasons we did, very difficult to.
Yeah. If there had been a 4th championship, what difference would it have made for Beşiktaş and you personally?
Well, it never happened, did it? It never happened. Unfortunately, when I left Beşiktaş to go to Japan, the Japanese season started halfway through the Turkish season, and that was no good for me. It was no good for Başkan, for Beşiktaş, but it was time for change, but it was the wrong time in the season. So would it have happened? Who knows?
Yeah, why do you think Beşiktaş couldn't reach the 4th championship?
I don't know, because excuse me, obviously I'd left that. It's a difficult thing to talk about because it didn't happen, and we parted at that time. Had we stayed together, I think we had the experience to do it, and I would have believed we could have done it, but you don't know. It's an unanswered question, that one.